Hey guys, this is Jamie. So today we're gonna discuss pretty much, I feel like, and this is a sentiment that many people feel like as well. I feel like music right now is really watered down, and I don't mean that it's less good, even though I would argue that right now music feels very tame. And I'll get there. But I feel like it also watered down as a source of medium when it comes to people speaking and politics speaking. So it really feels like, obviously, music can reflect the sort of political spectrum like you've had back in the 60s. Against Vietnam, people were against it. You had anti-war, you had hippies, and stuff like that. While now we live in a very difficult political climate, and sure, you can argue that right now things are thankfully de-escalating when it comes to between US, the European Union, Ukraine, and Russia, specifically about Ukraine. Because it did a video, I think about a week ago, which was talking about the situation there. But anyway, I'll move onwards. So, I wanted to start that in general, we need to look at the history. So, we had hippies, then we had different movements, punk, and now you have the very interesting part where Johnny Rotten, who was the lead singer of the Sex Pistols, who would sing songs like God Save the Queen and be very, very against her. We see him in a new light, in a new boomer light or whatever, where he says that on the opposite, he's pro the royal family. He thinks Brexit is a good idea. The foreigners are stealing workplaces, wives, money, husbands, everything, you know? And we also have other examples like Morrissey, who needs no introduction these days, as he has really enjoyed being a part of the far right, which is really weird because he was very against Margaret Thatcher back in the day, and he still is vocally against Margaret Thatcher to this day. And he even issued, not a statement, but in an interview, he did say that indeed I still feel the same hatred I have for Margaret Thatcher from my youth. But at the same time, he looks up to Nigel Farage. He looks up to what is it? There's this other radical one from the UK. I'll put it up somewhere here for me to show you. And in general, I feel like the music community was a way for people to express themselves. And it wasn't just in the West, but for instance, like if we're talking even Eastern Europe, USSR, people would protest by listening to music, which wasn't something that the politics allowed, and there were a lot of underground bands like which then became more popular as the perestroika went, as there was more liberty as things came out. So you had people listening to, so music was always important as a political statement. And right now I just feel like everyone's stepping on eggshells. Everyone is pretty much screaming vote blue no matter what, despite, and not even trying to challenge the politics. No one is anti-war anymore. Everyone wants to go to war. So I do feel like it's very weird. And at the same time, there's a lot of gatekeeping. So for instance, in the Goth community, I have to mention the fact that Joy Division being Goth to me still is a stellar point of I have no idea what's happening there. So Joy Division were pretty much always post-punk. And this is really funny for me because I lived in the UK for a bit, and just imagining people who like were from that town, who I've spoken to, or I've even met Peter Hook. I don't know how he feels about Joy Division being Goth these days, but I remember he did a conversation. I went to a book signing of his, and I was extremely lucky to do so. And he did state that he finds it interesting that the youths are still interested in Joy Division, etc. And I told him that when I became a fan, he pretty much said that's the youngest age of a person he knew. So officially, for a bit, I was the youngest fan of Joy Division. Known to Peter Hook. I'm sorry, this was just a fun memory. So I do feel weird because Joy Division was post-punk, not goth. And right now everyone is pretty much saying that it's goth. Well, you know. But at the same time, I feel like I am a hypocrite by saying, well, why is Joy Division goth? Because I do want to say that Joy Division is not goth in my eyes. Therefore, I'm saying as if it's not valid. But I do think that when it comes to being a goth, you can listen to many different genres, and you don't necessarily have to shoehorn yourself into whatever the community is thinking or whatever community you belong to. You don't necessarily have to go to rave parties. Like, again, maybe it's because I remember Goths from the Zeros, and another thing which also I find very weird is vegan Goths. I do understand that I am not the biggest supporter of veganism because I have a lot of food struggles, and for me to become vegan or vegetarian is limiting a lot of the food I already barely eat. So for me, it's practically impossible, and I need a lot of supplements and etc. So for me, it's basically impossible to do that. And I do feel like when it comes to veganism, a lot of people sort of pressure as if everybody can become a vegan when that is not the right way. Everyone should make their own conscious choice and understand what their body needs as well. So I just remember that there was, sure, you can look back at different singers and etc. A lot of them are vegetarians, a lot of them vegans as well. Well, vegetarian was more popular back in the day. And I do understand that you can kind of see traces of that in the previous movements since we're going, very strict. But it just feels really weird to me because leather was a big part of the goth community. And in general, the leather community was a big part of everything. And right now when there's faux leather, I feel like it's just a way to decrease costs and to sell things full priced for the price of leather when it's faux. And specifically, like, if you look at, like, as much I love Killstar, I swear to fucking baby Jesus, I love Killstar, but, like, for instance, they only have vegan leather. And I still find that a bit weird, because if you go, for instance, to more OG OG brands like Demonia or Doc Martens, they still do leather options and they do vegan leather options. So I still feel like we're really trying to shoehorn into what a goth is. And this is already very interesting because there was a period of time when goths weren't popular, and now they're becoming popular again. And it's more of a massive sort of movement, and everyone feels like they have to look like Susie from Susie and the Banshees with the makeup. The guys have some variety, here and there, but the girls just look like Susie from Susie and the Banshees. Like, everyone has the same makeup, but everyone can do whatever they want. I just feel like it's very shoehorned, and at the same time, when it comes to goths, there was a lot of like variety. There was a lot of queer positivity, trans positivity, and etc. If you go and look for goth history, and at the same time, I do want to be happy that it still has the inclusivity. People still accept queer people, so it's great. But at the same time, they're shoehorning many different things. So, moving from goths for a bit, I just wanted to say that there's also this whole idea of policing people. Who should be liked, who should not be liked. And I feel like everyone sort of tries to shoehorn into this thing that everyone has to be a Democrat, vote blue in order to be listened to. And this is where I guess I contradict myself as well, because I do understand that it's not a good idea to like pop in a Morrissey playlist these days, but at the same time, for instance, there are people who are not specifically, I would never cancel unless evidence showed up, which is pretty much like Marilyn Manson, who I adore. And they even have a Funko Pop there in the back, and I was thinking to show it off, but whatever. And like, for instance, I really enjoyed Marilyn Manson's political stances, which was being very apolitical in a sense. And that was his political stance, to say that he was against the two-party system. He was against what the politics are. So I really enjoyed that. And at the same time, you had, for instance, Trent Reznor from Nin. Like, he would do things like anti-war statements during the Bush-Iraq war era. Like, there was an MTV performance where they were supposed to show up, and they asked he asked to have George Bush in the back as a photo, and they understood that it would be an anti-war statement. So they told him, don't do it. And then he replied with, I agree with MTV. I think showing a war criminal or George Bush is a very bad look, considering the fact that we should support, that basically do not support a war criminal. Yes. So you had sort of these statements throughout time as well for these artists. So like when you see right now, like there was a recent incidents where people are now canceling Damon Albarn, for instance, from Blur. And he was always a massive anti-war activist. So he was against Tony Blair. He was against war. And he took pride in the fact that his grandfather also was very anti-war. And I think he died from starvation as a protest to a war, if I remember correctly. And people were really aggravated that he was putting down Taylor Swift, and I was like, and people are like calling him like an old coot, someone who's not relevant anymore, and that really grinded my gears, because what has Taylor Swift done? Like, I'm really trying to, I really don't like her music. I really feel like it's very empty, and when I was doing my notes, I really wanted to talk about the yassification of music, and I do feel like the music already is very watered down. There's no politics behind it, and such people like Taylor Swift, they have no message behind their music. And while I do understand that you want to just pop in some pop and work out at the gym with some pop music, which I do as well. Hell, I was on the treadmill yesterday to RuPaul, for fuck's sake. So I do understand that there is such thing as we can listen to any music and enjoy it, but I still feel like I miss when music made a political statement, and I wish in general people would do political statements. But instead, it's just like vote blue no matter who, and no one really speaks out about anything. Everything is a stunt. Like, even Beyonce's feminist thing, I remember when that happened like years ago, I was just livid. So you have like a lot of people which claim to do things, or they just pretty much tick the box and that's it. And there was an interesting, also again back to Damon Albarn, he said that he and Massive Attack, which is also a band, they made a very clear anti-war stand when they were receiving awards. And back in the day, people were really not comfortable speaking out about Tony Blair and about the war. And he was one of the first ones in the UK to speak up about it when it comes to musicians. And he said that many people who now are were at the same time very vocally anti-war, they wouldn't want to even speak about it because it was such an unpopular opinion back in the Tony Blair days. So it's really bizarre because people wouldn't do it factually for the clouds. They wouldn't do all these things just to gain audience. They would do that to be heard. they would do that for political things. They would raise awareness. Like, sure, you have political stunts back then. You had, like, Manic Street Preachers with Richie Edwards trying to say they're going to be the best band ever, and that's made them sell much less than they predicted and they wanted to. And it got them buzzing to this day, factually. But he still did a lot of political talking. He was a very intelligent man. And he raised many interesting things. Like, I remember one of my favorite things is he spoke about terrible things during World War II, or like they visited different places. He was very interested in communism, World War II history, and he was just traumatized with the fact that people were forgetting already these things that happened back in World War II, and this was 80s, 90s, and he was already nervous that people were assuming, or not assuming, but rather saying that the Holocaust isn't real back in the day. And now look at us now, where we have, I think it's Texas and Tennessee banning the book Mouse, which is about Holocaust, just because someone showed a titty or something there. So it's absolutely ridiculous. Everyone, and in general, the topic of the fact that people deny the Holocaust is a very sensitive one, even to speak about these days. And people try to say that, so for instance, I agree with the outrage, that there's a lot of anti-vaxxers which wear like shirts which say that they're equivalents, that in the Holocaust it was easier for some reason than being an anti-vaxxer right now. And that thing just irritates me to no end. But at the same time, there are proper Holocaust deniers in Eastern Europe, and I feel like that's a bigger issue. But anti-vaxxers are a massive issue right now. Please go get vaxxed. I don't care. Just go get vaxxed, get your booster, be nice. So you have people who twist politics into their own agenda as well, which is also, so everything is shoehorns, everything is mixed to be sold in this beautiful blue package with a ribbon wrapped around it, without questioning Hillary, Biden. And even when we talk right now, sure, at least we don't have Hillary, but with Biden, like, the costs of for the police is higher than when it was with Trump. You also have many issues. The country's pretty much falling apart when it comes to trans regulation. In Florida, they're passing a bill which says that the school can't use the word gay anymore. So I do understand that it changes from state to state, but he could still do anything at this point, you know? He can still call everything to a halt. I forgot the term for it. And he's not doing anything. He's not delivering his promises. What did he do? He started a YouTube Q&A with people like Manny MUA, who, I'm sorry, has said transphobic remarks in the past, and I don't believe the social climber, saying that we should care more about trans rights. And it's like, why didn't you listen to trans people? Why are you listening to YouTube creators? Why are they representing us? I do understand that we're in this era of influencers being bigger than the sun, but that's not it. You know? So I feel like it really, everything is watered down, everything has to be PG, everything has to fit what should be like politics with a clean front. And then you have like Democrats have a massive history of being anti-war, and you don't have that anymore. It's pretty much war and everything. So I also wanted to say that there were other statements, not just political, but like even when you compare pop stars to like Taylor Swift, I still have no idea what she achieved, seriously. Like, you have Madonna with being open about her sexuality. She broke a lot of barriers. You have, obviously, even if you look at yassification music, how I'm calling it in this video, apparently, you still had like YMCA. You had different groups which had gay people. You had more gay awareness. There were, I don't know, everything was just a statement. Like, even back in the AIDS crisis, like, people would do statements, and unfortunately, a lot of people died. Can you imagine that? Because the government didn't care. And right now, people don't speak up against anything at this point. Everyone just speaks up that, yeah, Donald Trump did bad X years ago, without understanding that Biden is also not that great, you know? And also, please understand that I just hated the US as a general. Right. So, you also had different statements. So, for instance, I remember when the Russian duo, the fake lesbians, tATu went on a show. I can't remember which one was it. It was one of those OG talk shows. It wasn't Letterman. And they showed up with shirts which said Chuj vojnie, which means fuck war. And then they got told to take them off, obviously, because people understood what they meant. And then they had to wear t-shirts that censor, which was already a massive message. And in general, it was really interesting back in the days when tATu was big. Because gay rights weren't just there yet. And it was weird to see that someone from Russia could be way more progressive. And tATu was discussing such things that nobody was really ready to discuss. They were the first ones, nearly the first ones making out in telly. You know, at the same time you had Marilyn Manson and his dope show video where two male cops make out. Obviously you had people making out here and there. You had Madonna. But they still made statements. Right now they're completely bonkers, both of them. But, you know, that's what happens. And that's what I get annoyed about. Because I said all these examples and it's literally, like, I'm really trying to think who is politically thinking about stuff. Like, even like Frank Ocean, who would talk to people so that they would vote blue. And then you look at his actions and it's like he doesn't care about anything. I don't think he's even campaigning these days. Is he campaigning for blue? I don't know. Anyway, so it's like, and even then, it's like, yeah, you talk to people, but what else are you doing? Like, you're not making massive statements. Like, I think his biggest statement was when he wore a t-shirt, or his own coming out as well. And I do understand that he was really affected by the death of his brother, and he's very more family-oriented these days. But at the same time, like, okay, Frank Ocean is a sensitive, you can get it, you cannot get it, it's a discussion. But when it comes to other musicians, everyone's really watered down. And in general, everyone really sort of, we choose our problematic faves or whatever, but no one's really doing a statement. Like, I don't know, like, even with Marilyn Manson, like, obviously he's caught up in all these cancellation scandals, which I don't believe are true because there's a lot of evidence which says otherwise. And I'm standing, I stand on Marilyn Manson, and I have so for ages. And obviously now his lawyers saying that they're gonna try to counter the cancel culture, and that's difficult as well. And I don't know if he's gonna manage it, if his lawyer's gonna manage it, because everything is just so watered down, and I feel like everyone kind of softened up. Even in general, when you look at arts, like right now, what do we have? We have NFTs and cryptocurrency as art. What the fuck? So anyway, I just wanted to say that everything feels like a reflection of our political arena, which is we do not talk, we go to war. If you're not like us, and you have to follow everything we do. And if you're not doing that, you're cancelled. That's pretty much it. So yeah, thank you very much for watching. And if you liked this video, please give me a like. And if you really liked, please subscribe. Thank you.